All right, we're having some fun now. Alex Barth, Evan Lazar at Gillette Stadium, CLNS Media's Patriots draft coverage powered by betonline.ag. How's everybody doing? I got to tell you, Evan, I am doing great. And
this Alabama fan right here is...
I was doing great before that pick, but let me phrase it like this, and then we can get into the nitty gritty. But just a thought off the top, and then we'll get one from you too. What did we say going into this draft the Patriots needed to do? They needed a quarterback. They needed a top-level tight end. They needed an offensive tackle. They've done none of the things that they consensus needed to do, and yet we are still, and I think this is the majority, we're not in the minority in this.
Yep.
People are still exceptionally, both in the media and fans, are exceptionally happy with what they've done. This is classic Belichick.
Well, I mean, we expected them to do all those things. At the end of the day, I think what the picks have told me today specifically, they're just picking football players that fit their system and are going to excel as both human beings and also as system fits. Listen, I think Damien Harris, to get into specifics with him, his comparison on NFL.com is Sony Michel. They have a little bit of redundancy to them, right?
But you know what?
They're similar backs, but I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. But I think that there is going to be a type of reaction of, well, we picked Sony in the first round last year. Why do we also need Damien Harris if he's the similar player? But
something we talked about on the last segment, Evan, is that the Patriots haven't had that bowling ball back, and you said it could be Sony, and I said, do you want Sony to be that feature back? This allows Sony to take a little more of a beating down on the goal line because he doesn't also have to be, not that Damien Harris is going to be the main back, but it lessens the workload. Damien Harris, to me, is exactly in between Sony Michel and James White.
Yeah.
In that he can run the ball, maybe not as well as Sony, but he's a guy you can give the ball 20 times a game, but he's better in the receiving game than James White is. He's directly in the middle, and I think, that's a good spectrum, those three guys, and then it will be between Brandon Bolden and Rex Burkhead for that last spot.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of underratedness, I would say, in the passing game as a receiver.
I think he's just underrated as a whole.
Yeah, well, I had him as my third running back on my board, so I really thought that this was great value. I thought all along that this was a guy that they were going to target, a guy that come off when I talked to him at the combine just with a very Patriot-like demeanor. Calm, cool, collected, confident, but also aware of who he was and what he was doing. He played in the backfield at Alabama, as you know, with Kenyon Drake, Bo Scarborough, Josh Jacobs, with some stud running backs, and he was kind of lost in that wave a lot of the time, so to speak, and really handled it pretty well. And that he's a great running back by committee option because that's what he played in at Alabama, and he's not going to be kind of worried about that. Things I like about him for his game specifically, he knows who he is. He knows he's not Dion Lewis, and he's not going to be jump cutting guys all the time and making guys miss in a phone booth. So he really doesn't dance at all in the backfield. He hits the hole hard. He trusts his blocking and trusts his vision at the second level to really just take what's there and take what's given to him. I think he's got a little bit of power behind his pads, good contact balance certainly, and quick enough feet that he can kind of sidestep guys. But I think the one thing that really stood out to me, and I don't know if he's going to have necessarily the breakaway speed. It's similar to Sony. He might get caught from behind a little bit in the NFL. But I think the
Patriots have never chased breakaway speed at that position.
Yeah, but the one thing that really stands out to me is he's got a great feel for getting himself into space.
Yes.
Like every single time
football IQ is off the charts.
Yeah, and every time he touches the ball, it's like, okay, like there's a little crease here, a little crease there, and all of a sudden now he's in the secondary and he's out in the open field, and you're kind of just like, how did he get there? But he somehow gets there, even if he's not this like electrically, explosive athlete.
And I mean, just again, back on the whole draft, it's all been they've really checked every box, and they still have another pick tonight. We'll see if they trade a couple more picks. Corey Barton, the linebacker to the Seahawks. Bobby, it's Okreki, right, to the Colts.
I like Bobby Okreki.
And I mean, we got some time before the Patriots. Will Greer's still on the board for what it's worth. This is Patriots draft coverage powered by CLNS on CLNS Media, powered by betonline.ag. You leave your questions in the comments.
From our friend of the program, Dave Brown.
Friend of the sure, yep.
So
Dave, big friend of the program.
This pick was conveyed in the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. right? This is
so
part
is
of the Jimmy
is
trade.
the Jimmy Garoppolo trade done yet?
No. So
okay.
we still have pick 120 and the 2020 fourth rounder. So this is
so we're moving on to this.
So
Is it's like the Nets trade.
thing.
It's never going to die.
This is the interesting thing, right? Is that when the Jimmy Garoppolo trade came down, everybody was like, only a second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's ridiculous. This compensation is horrible. Bill Belichick has now turned it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players so far. You got 6 players for 1 player and 1 pick. That's like, that's what he does, right? And that's exactly what the plan probably was all along, was saying we're going to get this high second and we're going to turn it over 10 times and we're going to get 6 or 7 players out of the one Jimmy Garoppolo trade. Even if Duke Dawson, Christian Sham, Juwan Williams, and Damien Harris, that's where we're at so far. Even if they hit on 1 or 2 of those guys, they got pretty good return, I think. So listen, I think so far the Patriots are knocking this draft out of the park.
I agree. And there's no tight end, no quarterback, no offensive lineman. They did take a wide receiver, which they addressed. They did need a wide receiver. They addressed that. So there's that one. But again, overall, I just think they're absolutely killing it. Let's talk about, and this is something that was talked about when Rob Gronkowski retired, and I think we're seeing it manifest, is that without Gronk, without some of these receivers, were the days of Tom Brady throwing the ball 50 times a game over? Are the Patriots going to become more of a ground and pound team? And this pick kind of tells me that there's going to be more of a focus on the running game. There's going to be more of a focus on the running game this year. This is an upgrade at the running back position over Rex Burkhead, over Brandon Bolden, over whoever else.
Yeah.
He's third on the depth chart. He's still behind Sonny James White, but this is a guy who is going to be a factor this year. This is a guy who's going to be active. This is a guy who's probably going to get 10 to 15 touches a game to start, and we'll see how it goes. They are upgrading the running game. They are planning on being a more run-heavy team this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be careful with that, though, because at the end of the day, whatever your splits are, run, pass, the Patriots are going to go as far as Tom Brady's right arm takes them.
And that's fair. But again, I think they're setting it up where he doesn't have to throw it 50 times if they don't need him.
I don't think they want to throw it 50 times, especially in the weather that we get up here in New England at times.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, though, is that what this allows them to do is okay, maybe it's another running back, but that's how you score points in this league, is just by throwing skill players on the field. So now they just have all these different skill players. They can mix and match. They got a ton going on. It's just another weapon, right? It's just another weapon in the stable. Now it's up to Josh McDaniels to go out there, and Josh McDaniels grabbing N'Keal Harry and Damien Harris. I think he's excited.
And the two things these guys really have in common, and you can really throw it in for the defensive players too, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. This isn't some great realization, but versatility.
Yeah.
We talked about last night at length. N'Keal Harry is going to line up all over the field.
Yeah.
Damien Harris is a guy who on one down could be a power back, on another down could be a receiving back, and we've talked about what Winovich will do moving all over the field. We don't know if Juwan Williams is a safety or a corner, so no surprise, but the Patriots are certainly sticking to some versatility with their draft picks. You want to answer some questions?
Sure,
let's answer some questions. Do we think so? And this is a fair question at this point. Now, next pick coming up at 97 is, quote, do we just forget about the quarterback conversation at this point?
Well, Will Greer's still out there.
We missed a couple picks there. I want to make sure before I said that.
Will Greer is still out
the
there.
only picks, real quick, the only picks we missed, a couple offensive linemen, Connor McGovern, and Trey Pipkins is a guy you talked a lot about.
Yep.
He goes to the Chargers.
Tackle prospect that can really move.
5 picks away from the Patriots. Are we throwing the quarterback conversation out the window?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Will Greer and Ryan Finley are still guys in this tier. Listen, the thing that I like so much about this, what's happening right now, is that Will Greer is dropping to a spot where I certainly feel a lot more comfortable about them drafting him. I thought if we were going to have to take Will Greer with their either their first pick or their second pick in the draft, is a major reach based off the tape. Now you're in a conversation in the third round, much better. And I think that really this is what backs up, kind of what I thought about Ryan Finley too, that Mason Rudolph comparison that I made. This is a round where Mason Rudolph went. This is starting to look, the other thing though, just to kind of cover all the angles, is with the quarterback position, there's not a whole lot of teams out there that need a quarterback right now.
It's really just Cincinnati and maybe Green Bay.
There's teams that need backups, that need, guys that are maybe successors, like the Chargers with Phillip Rivers, or the Patriots or Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Guys, they need quarterbacks 2 to 3 years down the road. They don't need quarterbacks tomorrow. So that's another reason why I think these guys are falling, is because they're really falling into like backup quarterback range at this point.
Why do you think Will Grier is falling?
I think that this is kind of where he belonged. I think based off of, everything that I did when I studied him, like, his arm is good, not great. He's got some ball security issues. I mean, I had a 3rd round grade on him. We're in the 3rd round. You know, I mean, this is kind of where I, imagined. I just kind of figured that the potential of the quarterback position could bump him up into into the early 3rd round or even the 2nd round. But I think the biggest thing is that his mechanics in this league, they don't have a ton of time if you're going to start right away to refine footwork and mechanics. And he's got footwork issues. That big throw that he had against Texas to win the game, if you watch that throw and you watch his feet on that throw, it's like a jump shot. It's like, what are you doing with your feet? Now, the end result was great, right? It's a dime touchdown pass.
But you got to look at the little things.
Right, you got to look at the little things, and the NFL doesn't have a ton of time when it comes to practice time. They don't have a developmental league. That's right up your alley. That
RIPDAF, pour some out.
They don't have a ton of time to develop that. So you can't really take that, early on, unless you have what is called like an uncoachable or unteachable trait. Like, for example, Kyler Murray's athleticism is an unteachable trait. His arm strength also. That's why he's the #1 pick in the draft. Last year, Josh Allen, his arm talent, unteachable. You can't refine arm talent to match Josh Allen's. Will Grier is a fine quarterback prospect. He's nothing special.
All right. Somebody wants to know the difference between Josh Jacob and Damien Harris.
Josh Jacobs is a little bit more explosive, I would say.
Is a little bit more explosive worth 70 draft spots?
Well, I mean, the NFL, the Patriots did just take Sony Michel in the 1st round.
True.
So it depends on who you ask, I suppose. I mean, Josh Jacobs is certainly a better prospect. I had him as running back 1. I had Damien Harris as running back 3. So he was definitely better.
Yep.
And, the question now kind of just boils down to, does that explosiveness that Josh Jacobs have translate into, the player that the Raiders, hope he is?
Let's see. What else do we got for questions here? Apparently somebody compared Damien Harris. They called him the anti-Lawrence Maroney, which makes, my stance on that.
That's what's great about it, right? Is just,
he's going to hit the holes.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the offense going to be more run heavy this year? We just kind of talked about that. I think naturally with this pick. Is Michael Chavis going to take over for James Devlin? He's certainly built for it. Riley Ridley. What do you think is going on with Riley Ridley right now?
I think that, I was much higher on Riley Ridley. I figured his route running abilities and his kind of football IQ and next level route refinement was going to be able to let him get open at the NFL level regardless. But it sounds to me like the NFL teams, that combine really killed him. He really did not have a good combine, did not run well, did not test well in any of the agility drills. It was a bad combine, and that pushes you down the board sometimes at that position.
So again, keep the questions coming in the chat. This is Patriots Draft Coverage. CLNS Media. We have how long? All right, we're actually going to jump off now. So we're going to talk to Damien Harris. We'll come back and analyze the 97th, and what will probably be the Patriots' final pick of the night. You can keep track of when we come back on. Subscribe on YouTube and follow at Patriots CLNS on Twitter. From Gillette Stadium, for Evan Lazar, I'm Alex Barth. We'll talk to you in a bit.